Hi everyone, and welcome back to Living Intuitively with Elisa. Today's episode is a weekly tarot pull for the week of May 3rd through the 9th, 2020. May. One of the big announcements that I have is that I have a new intuitive chat episode coming out on Thursday, May 7th, with a special guest. And if you look for my Instagram, which is at Intuition Living, you'll get some sneak peek information about who's going to be on the podcast and what we're going to talk about. So this podcast is being released on Sunday, May 3rd. So on Monday, May 4th, I'm going to be releasing on my Instagram who is the next guest, and then the podcast with the guest is going to be released on Thursday, May 7th. So before we get started on the tarot, it's May. And depending on where you are in the world, we might be going through transitions. I know that where I am, we're finally getting some consistency with the weather. The spring here is a little bit weird, and it doesn't seem to be as consistent as I'd like it to be. But it almost makes me appreciate it more when the sun is out, when the wind is blowing. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. And the trees are starting to bloom. We're starting to get greenery. We're so used to having snow and all of the trees being so dark, and just sticks. But we're starting to get green trees. So if you're a planter or gardener, I'm sure you have already started seeing your sprouts and your flowers start to bloom. And that's beautiful. And it's also made me realize that there is beauty in every transition. The winter to spring is a great time to think about this because the transition is so beautiful and so alive. There's so much to look forward to. But we have to remember these transitions when, for example, we go from fall to winter, when things start to get dark. And we have to appreciate every season and every transition all the same. They all come with different things, but we have to appreciate the beauty in every transition. And it's an easy one to transition into spring when we've been in the dark and the cold, and we're going into the light and the warm. But we have to remember that this death and birth happens at every transition. And we have to appreciate all of them. And this is a great metaphor for life. Having to plant seeds and wait patiently for those seeds to start to sprout, and those sprouts to start to bloom and to grow and to fruit. We can plant seeds inside of us at any time, but we have to be patient for those things to bloom. And a little bit of ourselves has to die sometimes, and to let go and release for those seeds to start to bloom and to sprout. So I'm learning a lot this season. I don't know about you, but I'm learning a lot about myself and how sometimes you have to just let things go, even if they bother you, to make room for new things to bloom. So let's get to the tarot pull for this week. And actually today, May 3rd, so this tarot pull is for the week of May 3rd through the 9th. But this tarot pull, I'm going to actually pull two cards. One is going to be from the classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I usually pull from. And then the other card is going to be from an Oracle deck. And it's one of my newer Oracle decks, and it's the Amenti Oracle deck. And I did a little bit of an unboxing on my Facebook page or Facebook group. The Facebook group is the Private Tarot or Intuitive Tarot or Intuitive Community. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the links. If you go to my Instagram, Intuition Living, you'll find the link there. I did a little unboxing of my new tarot and oracle decks. And so I'm going to be pulling from the oracle deck. And I just started using this deck, and I'm already loving it. There are 42 cards. And the guidebook, I'm going to probably be reading not the whole passage of the card that we pull, but some of it. And a little bit about tarot versus oracle. I posted a little thing on my Instagram and on my Facebook about the difference between tarot and oracle. And I'm hoping that with this episode, we'll kind of dive into a little bit of those differences by using this week's tarot pull and using the two different pulls. And maybe you'll see from this tarot pull, this weekly tarot pull, the differences between what a tarot deck can give you and an oracle deck can give you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on my Instagram, Intuition Living. You can direct message me there. All right, so before we even start shuffling, before we start pulling the cards, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to reset, to soften all of our edges, and open our heart to any of the messages that the cards have for us today. And I'm pulling for the entire community, anybody who's listening, and is open and willing to receive the messages that I have, or that the cards have, that I'm just bringing out of the cards. So let's take a moment. If you have space, close your eyes, and let's take a deep breath in, full breath out. One more time, inhale. Full breath out. Just allow, taking these moments to receive the messages. Even before we pull the cards, we can pull messages from the community, from the energies all around us, from this season. All right, so I'm going to start with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And I'm using, for anybody watching the video, I'm using this Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. And I'm going to start shuffling the cards. I like this deck because it has the white rose from the death card on the back of the card. And what's great about that symbol and the death card in general is that it's such a great representation of this death before the rebirth. And the white rose that is actually on the symbol or on the flag of the death card symbolizes that blooming or that birth that happens after the death. So I love using this deck and having that reminder in the back of the card that things can bloom again. Alright, so I'm going to run my hand along the side of the deck until I feel a card that is speaking to us as a community. And the card for this week is the Chariot. We've had this pull before for this tarot podcast. It was one of the first cards that we pulled for this podcast. And so this is the 7th card of the Major Arcana. And it depicts a person in a chariot. And in front of the chariot are two Sphinx two sphinxes, whatever the plural version of that is. One of them is black and one of them is white. And you can see from just the look of them, one is a man, or one is masculine, I'm going to say, and one of them is feminine. So another thing to point out is that the person in the chariot has a star crown, which reminds me of the Empress card, actually. She has the star crown, like the one in this card. And then he has, or she has, moons. And it looks like the chariot, or the person in the chariot, is riding away from the castle, has crossed the moat that is surrounding the castle, and is now into that space, moving forward, away from the castle, away from safety and home. And this card, I pulled it up upright, I should note that too, is going towards what they're set to do. They're moving forward away from home into this new adventure. And whether this person is going to battle, it looks like he's wearing armor. Whether he's going to battle or just going off to a new world, into the new life, it kind of feels very spring-like. Like they're ready to go into a new adventure. And I see this as a very exciting card. And very forward-thinking. And so if I were to offer any advice based on this card, what I see is move towards that goal. You have goals, and you have ambitions, and you've had this time, depending on where you are in the world, we're all affected by what's going on in the world right now. And we are given this time to become re-aware of our goals and ambitions. And we've had this time to think about what actions we want to take when we get out of this situation that we're in, this quarantine that we're in. So now is the time to actually start thinking about that path forward. And one of the things that I want to point out is I talked about the two sphinx in the front of the card that are pulling the chariot forward. And I want to make note that it's the male, or the masculine, and the feminine that are pulling the chariot forward. And that's really important. Because a lot of times when we think of forward moving and going after something and going after our goals, we think of that in a very masculine way. We think of it as driven and getting what I want and taking what I want. And that's actually one of the downsides of this card, or the things that are warning, this card is warning about, is it can be like that attitude of like, I'm going to take what I want and it's mine. I'm going after my goals and ambitions and I want it, it's mine. I deserve this. But this card, because there's a male and female, or masculine and feminine in the front of the card, it's telling you to lead and approach your goals, take what you want, but do it in a harmonic way with both your masculine and feminine sides. So to be nurturing and soften and understanding of other people, but while at the same time speaking your mind and saying what you want. And so we're given this time, this pause, to think about what we want and think about the best ways to get them done. Maybe that means changing the way that you've done it in the past. If anything that's going to come out of this mess, I'm going to say it, this mess, if anything is positive is going to come out of it, it's that we have to reevaluate if whether or not the way that things have been is how we should be doing things, and whether we want the same goals, we want the same ambitions, whether we have the same passions, and if we do have the same passions as we did before, is the approach that we took before this the same as what we want to do moving forward. So this card really tells you, move forward, do that, get what you want. Speak your mind. But be considerate of both your masculine and feminine sides. All right, the Chariot. That's a fun card. I think it's fun card, and it's very motivating. All right, so like I said, the second card we're going to pull is from the Amenti Oracle deck, and it's a 42 card deck. I love the back of this deck. It's beautiful, and the general idea of this deck is it's 42 ideals, and it's 42 ways to live your life in a way that lightens your heart. So the thing on the front of the booklet says, living with a feather heart. And there's a mythology or a story, I think it's Egyptian, that when you die and you go, you get evaluated, your life gets evaluated by weighing your heart against a feather. And if you aren't living these 42 ideals that are outlined in this card, or the texts associated with these cards, or that these cards are based off of, if you don't live with those values, your heart becomes heavy. And that's shown in a heavier heart than the feather that it's weighed against. So I love that idea, that we have all these ideals that we have to live by, and we have to remind ourselves throughout our life and weigh everything that we're doing and everything that we're saying, all the people that we're with, all of the actions that we're doing. If I bring back the Chariot, all the goals that we set, we have to weigh it against all of these ideals. All right, so let's see what ideal we should focus on for this next week. So I already shuffled the deck, and I'm running my hand again across the deck to find a card that speaks to the community, to the collective, to anybody who's listening to this recording. All right. Oh, I love the art in this card deck. So the card that I pulled says, I am peaceful. I am peaceful. And the imagery of this card, it shows this woman with a dove, I think, above her head. And she's resting her chin on an hourglass. An hourglass that is about halfway through. So the time, it represents that time is still moving forward. And she's resting her head on it. I am peaceful. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the book, because like I mentioned, this is a new deck for me, and I do believe that while for the tarot deck, they're set definitions or interpretations, depending, even if you get different tarot decks, you'll probably get similar interpretations for each of the set cards. Oracle cards, on the other hand, are all up to the artist or the reference that they base the cards off of. Alright, so this one says, I am peaceful. Oh, it's the third of the ideals. So out of the 42 ideals, this is the third one. Okay, I'm only going to read a couple of the lines in this book. You know, I don't want to spend too much time reading the whole thing, but I'll read the most important ones, the ones that are calling out to me this time. So it says, I am peaceful. From the moment we enter this world and begin our passage through time, the sands in the hourglass of the soul begin to move. It says to be at peace is to be one with what is finding ease in all, serenity in silence, and seeking calm even in the middle of the storm. Allowing the light of your heart to shine through the darkest hours can bring the daylight of peace, even during the dark night of the soul. Oh. Wow. It says, when we want, wish, and worry, we forfeit our faith and lose the potential for peace with the all of it all. Peace is ease with the dream of creativity and faith in knowing every why will be answered within the hourglass of time. And pair this with the Chariot. This puts into words exactly what I mean when I say to bring in both the feminine and the masculine side of this chariot of these goals and ambitions. This card embodies what it is to be in that feminine side as you're going after your goals. It's to know how to be peaceful even whenever there's chaos all around us. Even when we want those actions and those ambitions to happen right away, and we're getting frustrated even if things aren't going fast enough, we can be peaceful. That's an amazing card. And I love that stillness. And this goes along with what I was saying in the beginning of this recording, that we need to sometimes have that stillness and that death in order for the things to seed and to bloom. We can sit in that moment of darkness, knowing and having faith that things will work out and that we are in peace. So the Chariot and I am peaceful. What's great about this deck is that you can use these cards as a kind of mantra throughout the week, anytime you're feeling chaos, or maybe anytime you feel like you're stepping too much into the masculine and you want to tap into that feminine side. You can repeat this. I am peaceful. All right. So I hope you really enjoyed this tarot pull, this weekly tarot pull episode with Living Intuitively with Elisa. Again, this is for the week of May 3rd through the 9th. Look out for the guest episode, which is coming out May 7th, which is Thursday. If you have any questions, you want to talk about tarot, about Oracle, if you have any questions for me at all, or if you just want to chat about intuition and tarot, feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram, which is Intuition Living. There you can find links to all of the sources of this podcast, whether or not you're listening to it on audio or video. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.